This is Talkback with Peter, Christian, and John King. 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 101.5 FM.
Newstalk KGVO,
Missoula's news and weather station.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of Talkback, brought to you by AAA. Your AAA card doesn't just give you roadside assistance. It gives you discounts on local and national brands. Join now at a second person free. Learn more at AAA.com/Montana. Also brought to you by Office City, celebrating 100 years in business this year. See them for office supplies and furniture, price match guarantee, and free next day delivery. Spray Green Lawn, providing lawn aeration services, fertilization, and weed control. Call 207-9273. Western Montana, New Holland, south of the Y on Highway 10 across from the Axeman, now offering special financing, 0 down up to 84 months on approved credit.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not the...
Hey, welcome, everybody. It is the Friday 1-hour edition of Talkback, and we have the fabulous county attorney of Missoula, Kirsten Pabst. Hey, Kirsten, how are you?
I'm well, Peter. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Doing fantastic. So I understand that we have some numbers to talk about, right?
Yeah, we've had a really, really busy week, Peter.
So what happened?
We opened 24 new cases over the past 7 days.
Wow.
Which is really on the high end, as you know. 3 of those were partner family member assault cases, and one of the partner family member assault cases involved assault with a weapon. If you recall, the defendant was alleged to have threatened his mother with a knife.
Right. I remember that one, yeah.
There was a felony DUI, which is a fourth or subsequent DUI, charged as a felony. Aggravated animal cruelty, involving the allegation that the defendant strangled his girlfriend's dog.
Now, I wanted to ask you about that, because John and I were talking about this a little bit. What is it that whenever there's a story, if you remember when people were darting the pets over in Lolo, and then in this particular incident, it just seems to get people really riled up when just ordinary partner or family member assault is just kind of, ho-hum, just an everyday occurrence.
You know, and I can't answer that for you, Peter. I know that people are legitimately offended when others are alleged to have hurt their animals or hurt someone else's animals because they're so defenseless. And right. I think they epitomize what we're trying to protect in the victims, sure. Whether it's kids, whether it's spouses, girlfriends, or strangers on the street, or your girlfriend's dog. There's that sense of helplessness that we need to step in and hold some people accountable.
Sure. So what? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
So I understand you've had a really crazy week this week with a number of cases. Yeah. And I was wondering, what is making up the majority of those cases?
Well, I was just kind of getting to the bigger ones. We had 5 fugitives from justice, which is a really high number. Normally, we usually have 1 or 2 fugitives that we file, which are folks who have warrants active in other states, and then they come in contact with law enforcement. Law enforcement runs them, realizes there's a warrant, picks them up, and then we send them off to the state where they're wanted. There were 4 burglaries, which is a really high number. I don't know if it's the time of year, if it was just coincidental. A case involving unauthorized burning, where if the woman actually had a burning permit, and the allegation is that she was burning beyond what's allowed in the permit, and so I wanted to let people know that if you do get a burning permit, the permit covers burning untreated wood and vegetation. You can't burn things like furniture, garbage.
Burn your membership to the European Union if you want?
A little bit of maybe green materials that aren't necessarily legal, which you want to stand downwind on that one.
That's a different charge.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then we had the sexual intercourse without consent and a failure to register as a violent offender, some other miscellaneous things, but that kind of hits the high points.
Wow. So the number 24, usually we're talking about 15 cases a week for your office. The 24 seems above and beyond that. And in fact, it's the highest that we've had that I know of on Talkback in talking to you. How close do you think it is to being a record for your office?
I think it's pretty close to being a record, John. I don't have all the numbers in front of me right now, but to be fair, some of these cases were cases that we filed that where the folks were not in custody and hadn't been arrested, but the law enforcement in many cases brings us a file and says, when you have time, file this charge. It's a theft or a bad check or something that's not as serious or doesn't pose a community threat. Those take second seat to the in custody cases where we feel like there's a community safety threat. They obviously get the priority there.
Now, the one case that drew a lot of interest on social media was the one where the young woman obviously did not want to be appearing in justice court and decided to have a little back and forth with Judge Karen Orzak. And that was a woman who ended up spending 30 days in jail on contempt of court charges.
Yes, she did. And that was one of the very rare situations. In fact, the only situation that comes to mind where the prosecutor's office is not involved in filing the charges. In certain types of contempt of court, it's the judge that levies the charge and then handles the prosecution and the sentencing altogether without our involvement.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that you guys were left out of the loop on that.
There's other types of contempt of court where we actually file a complaint, but if the contempt happens in the presence of the judge has the authority then to hold the person in contempt and levy fines and penalties.
And to be honest with you, I must admit, I was there when this happened, and I thought Judge Orzak handled herself very well.
Yeah, she's a quintessential professional. There's no doubt about that. But
and we're going to be losing her next month, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about the appointment of Miss Holloway, though. I think she's extremely qualified to take the position, and then we'll see what happens with the election.
How close does your office work? I mean, do you know these judges outside of the scenes? Do you guys have meals together and talk about what's going on in Missoula? Or how close is the relationship, I guess, between the county attorney's office and the judges?
I would say that our relationship is very professional. We respect each other. We have incidental contact because we work very close to each other. But there's also professional boundaries that we maintain as well out of respect. You know, we can't have ex parte communications with judges about open cases, and we're very conscientious to not engage in that kind of behavior. But we like each other, too. You know, we work closely together. I have the utmost respect for our judiciary here.
Wonderful. Kirsten, you have a wonderful weekend. Try to stay dry.
I will. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. All right, that's Kirsten Pabst, our county attorney. We're up against a break, 721-1290. Had an interesting conversation this morning with the Brexit. But I awoke this morning. I get up early. And the first thing I did was check to see what happened in Great Britain. And I had already had several texts from my daughter, who is a European traveling nurse right now, international traveling nurse. She's in Great Britain. And the vote was 52 to leave, 48 to stay. And so they're out.
And I would also like to throw open the door for our listeners. If you happen to be a Briton living in Montana, or you have close family members that are in Britain that have kind of relayed their feelings about Brexit to you, give us a call, 721-1290, or our long-distance number, 1-800-568-5309.
If you're really far away.
Yeah.
But we do have an interview with a young man that I did just about 5 o'clock this morning, and he was talking to me from London. So we'll have that in just a few. Peter's not paying attention. Da, 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 da. There's the song. 721-1290 is, you like that? I know. 721-1290 is the number. Mark, you have a comment this morning. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, what's up?
Hello. Yeah, I have a comment.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. My comment is, can the county and city attorneys, can they use like the University Law School to do legwork or research to help keep down the cost of their lawsuits?
That's a very good question. I don't know.
I would be surprised if they didn't have interns, things like that, from time to time.
They have a pretty good sized staff there, though, and they're all attorneys. So, you know.
Okay.
All right, Mark. Thanks. Appreciate the call. All right, 721-1290.
I've never heard of an attorney that wasted anyone's time or money, so it seems like it'd be a pretty good idea.
All right. Well, let's go to the interview I had earlier this morning. This is Andrew, and he's calling me from London, England, on the WhatsApp app that I have on my phone.
WhatsApp.
The WhatsApp, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's listen to this.
Apropos.
Yeah, thank you. This is about 9 minutes long, so I really want you to pay attention to what he says, and keep in mind it's like, through thousands of miles away.
This is a foreign language, so you might have difficulty.
Yes, thank you.
So here we go. This is Andrew. Andrew, I really wanted to get your reaction. I think the world is shocked that that Great Britain has voted to leave the EU. When you first saw the results, what was your reaction?
It was real shock. I genuinely didn't expect it to happen. I was thinking about the Scottish referendum when that was happening, and there was one poll that sort of suggested that it might happen, and I thought, wow, this is big news. And then when I woke up that morning and nothing had changed, it was still the same, and my reaction was kind of, oh yeah, of course, nothing. These seismic events don't really normally happen. So I just thought, yeah, it will be scary, it will be close, but not common sense, but caution will win the day, and will remain. But I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Took me a couple of seconds, checked my phone, and it was just like, oh, wow, just completely, genuinely sort of shocked and kind of scared in a way. I was just lying there for an hour just thinking about what it means, because nobody knows.
Well, to you, what do you think drove this negative vote?
It's all about, it's two things, in my opinion. It's about there's this real growing sense of apathy and frustration within, I think, global economic politics, but especially in the United Kingdom, whereby for the last 20 years we've been sort of ruled by both Labour and Conservatives, and they haven't really been listening or caring too much about what people say or think, especially working class people, and especially people who don't live in big cities like London or Manchester and things like that. And these people's lives have been kind of really disrupted and made much worse by the recession, and austerity hasn't made things any better. And I think a lot of people are just really uncertain about the future. Things are really unstable for people, just getting really kind of scared and angry. And that was kind of the mood and the feeling. And then the UKIP have come along, United Kingdom Independence Party, who've really driven this whole push towards a referendum. And they've tapped into that zeitgeist. I don't think it was any particular reason why it was UKIP, but I just think they managed to find that moment, and they've just tapped into that kind of fear of instability and said, right, it's all because of, essentially, talk about immigration, which is the most visual thing you can think of. Like when you wake up in the morning, if you've lived in a town for like the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, and you look outside of your window, you start to see it changing, you start to see different people coming in, you start to see different cultures coming in, and that whole sense of identity and Englishness is just broken down, and that's just fed into this real sense of unease. So when it comes to the vote, it's less about the EU. Nobody really sort of cares about the EU, I don't think many people really understand it. I think it's just people use the EU as a kind of not metaphor, but like
a whipping boy.
Yeah, like a fall guy in a way. Like they looked at EU and they pinned all of those things onto the EU. So the whole thing about immigration, the whole thing about financial instability, the lack of control that people feel in their own lives. So all these kind of concepts that pro-leave campaigners was talking about, like, we don't have control over certain laws, we have to pay a lot of money to the EU, and what do we get back? There's lots of people coming to the country, and there's going to be more and more open borders, so there's less, scarce resources shared amongst more people, so that all feeds into these kind of fears and of instability. And I think that's what people were thinking. They were just like, I don't want a part of that, even though the EU has nothing to do with our problems. Our problems all come from austerity and the recession. Nothing to do with the EU.
Well, now, Andrew, what have the UK markets? How have the UK markets responded? I know here in America, our Dow Jones Industrials is scheduled to open about 600 points lower.
Yeah. Well, I don't know exact details, but I've heard that the pound is at its lowest since 1998. So the pound's plummeted, essentially. Markets aren't doing too well. I think Mark Carney, who's the head of the Bank of England, he made a speech to try and sort of calm everyone down, basically. But I think it's currently we're not doing too well. So I think the pound's devalued quite a bit.
So, just as a UK citizen, Andrew, how do you believe this is going to affect you?
Me personally, well, the thing is, I'm not a property owner, and I don't work in a job that's directly linked with EU funding, as far as I'm aware. So I don't know if it will affect me. I don't know, to be honest. I genuinely don't know. I was talking to a colleague of mine who has just bought a property, and one of the warnings of leaving Brexit or leaving the EU was falling house prices. And as you know, well, I don't know if you know, but the house prices in London, especially, have just been going absolutely astronomical over the last 5 years, and so everyone's really having to save and just put everything into getting the first mortgage. You know, the first generation of people are buying houses, and now if house prices plummet, then all that money that people invested in their property will just gone, vanished. And this colleague again, he's a filmmaker, and he's just released his first feature film, and the proceeds that he's getting back from that, he's just got most of it back just in time, but the rest of it is now a quarter of the value that it would have been had we not left, because of the way the pound is going at the moment. So in terms of real world situations, people are basically just going to start losing money on investment in property and any kind of financial transactions that are going between different countries. And for me personally, I think I'm sure there'll be in terms of job security, in terms of the amount of money that I can expect to make on things like buying a house and just travel costs and prices of things, that's all going to go up. So it's all just going to be financial and those very sort of everyday things.
Sure. Now, one more quick question, Andrew, then I'll leave you alone. And that is,
okay.
is this vote absolutely binding? In other words, is there a way that the powers can be, the political parties can ask for a do-over, or is this it?
I mean, it's not legally binding. We don't have, there's nothing in we don't have a constitution, so there's nothing written down that says just because we've had a referendum, the government has to do anything about it. But we see, David Cameron's just resigned, as you know, this morning, so politicians tend to take the people very seriously. That's something that I guess is good about our democratic system. It's if there's a vote on something, it's essentially taken as so we're out. That's it. You could argue about the kind of finer points of what our relationship with the EU will be. I think a lot of people who voted probably want us to just completely remove ourselves from the EU and totally close off our borders and just have absolutely nothing to do with that body anymore. I don't think that will happen. I think whoever's in charge after Cameron and whoever oversees the next couple of years, they will obviously try and get the best deal in terms of trade and and everything that we can. But in terms of actually leaving, we've left. That's it. It's a completely done deal.
Now, Andrew, I heard the percentage was 54% to leave. Is that correct?
52 again. 52 leave, 48 stay.
So it was a
4%.
Pretty close vote.
Yeah.
It was a pretty close vote then.
Yeah, they say it's. Yeah, they're saying it's a wide margin, as in the amount of people that wanted to leave. In terms of referendums, apparently it's a wide margin. But I thought it's very close. Obviously, it's almost 50-50. So there are a very, very large majority of people who didn't want to leave, and also Scotland didn't want to leave. Most Scottish people voted to stay. So that's going to have a massive effect on their claim to independence. Again, I think they're already calling for another referendum because they don't want to basically leave the EU along with the United Kingdom. They want to cede away from us and keep with the EU whilst England goes down.
So basically, you got a long way to go before all this is said and done, right?
It's just I think it's just completely rewritten the rule book. I think every single thing that we took for granted and could rely on and think about in terms of our kind of standing in the world, our economy, our trading relationship, literally culturally, our identity, everything's changed.
All right, there it is. All right, so we're going to take way overdue for a break. We'll come right back at 721-1290. If you want to respond to that, we'd love to hear you. I hear from you. It's also open phones. So whatever's on your mind, we'll be right back. To Talk Back, which is brought to you in part this morning by Selway Armory on Stockyard Road. More guns and ammo than anyone in Missoula, Montana's premier firearms dealer. Transport Equipment, your headquarters for RV service maintenance and repair. Call 541-9097. Dig It Excavating, 30 years of excavation excellence in every job. 214-4292. And Kootenai Creek Village, the maintenance-free active adult community in Stevensville, the best of Western Montana living. All right. So what do you got, John?
Yeah, well, I've been thinking a lot this morning about what all this means. After he even actually mentioned it in the call that Scotland might take a step away from the United Kingdom. Remember, kind of like the European Union, United Kingdom is a union of kingdoms.
Several nations, right?
Yeah. And I guess I'm starting to see a trend in the world, this populism, this national populism, a movement away from these great uniting political bodies that we once had. And most of these political bodies were united in a way to kind of counteract greater enemies from the past. Whether that be the Cold War or, France and Germany, which started the EU really, came together so that they wouldn't fight each other anymore after World War II. And this whole movement of separation now, that a lot of these political alliances aren't maybe necessarily needed. Anyway, I wanted to bring this into mind because I think that one of the big reasons for this separation is the world's failure at dealing with the current crisis of the day. One of those big crises is being in Syria. And you might say, how does Syria connected to the European Union and to the United Kingdom? I want to play a clip from you that turned out to be a little bit prophetic. This is Nigel Farage. He's the head of UKIP, which is the United Kingdom Independence Party.
Yeah, Andrew mentioned that.
Yeah, right. This is the party that basically rose up to make them separate from the European Union, right. Okay? And he is responding to a speech that was given by Jean-Claude Juncker, which is the State of the European Union speech, which happened back in September. And during that speech, Juncker asked for there to be a basically agreement to have 160,000 migrants into the European Union. And this was Nigel Farage's response to that. And it's very relevant, I think, to the conversation.
Here we go.
Mr. Juncker, you've simply got this wrong. As I warned you in April, the Europeans' common asylum policy sets its terms so wide that to say that anyone that sets a foot on EU soil can stay, I said it would lead to a flow of biblical proportions, and indeed that is what we're beginning to see. And that's been compounded by Germany last week, saying that basically anyone can come. It's a bit too late now to draw up a list of countries from whom can stay and can't stay. All they have to do, as they're doing, is throw their passports in the Mediterranean and say they're coming from Syria. As we know, the majority of people that are coming, and the Slovak Prime Minister has been honest enough to say so, the majority that are coming are economic migrants. In addition, we see, as I warned earlier, evidence that ISIS are now using this route to put their jihadists on European soil. We must be mad to take this risk with the cohesion of our societies. If we want to help genuine refugees, if we want to protect our societies, if we want to stop the criminal trafficking gangs from benefiting as they are, we must stop the boats coming as the Australians did, and then we can assess who qualifies for refugee status. I noted your comments because there's a referendum coming in the United Kingdom. I look forward to seeing you in the UK. I know you intend to spend tens of millions of pounds of British taxpayers' money telling us what we should think. I have a feeling that the British people will warm to you on a personal level, but to suggest that getting rid of a few EU regulations is going to change our minds, sorry, unless you give Mr Cameron back control and discretion over our borders, the Brits, within the course of the next year, will vote to leave.
Okay, and we are back, and we're up against about for 2 minutes past a break, so we will go ahead and take a quick time out. Whatever's on your mind this morning, we'd love to hear from you. It's 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309. More of Talkbacks coming right up. This is Talkback. It's open phone, so whatever's on your mind this morning, 721-1290 is our number, and we got Emmett on the line. Emmett, good morning. You're on Talkback, sir.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. Well, I did have a question about this whole EU thing that's always kind of confused me, and I wish we would have that guy on, just as it would be fascinating to have him live so we could take our questions. My question for the guest you talked to over in England would have been, when was the EU formed? How long has the EU been in? And was England forced against its will into the EU?
Oh, no one was forced into it. I think the whole idea was to try to form an economic union that would kind of rival the United States for economic power, and that's where the euro came from.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily for economic power originally. So the actual formation of the EU is 1993.
Okay.
Interesting.
When I went to Germany, when I went to Germany in the year 2000, they were just starting to use the euro in Germany, and the economic unification of the euro was about to begin. But keep in mind, with UK never used the euro. They kept their own pound and frankly did a better job with their currency than the euro did, at least up until recently when it fell precipitously this morning. The European Union is a bunch of different things, and that's why I think it confuses a lot of people. It's not quite like the United States, where you have a bunch of independent states and a federal government with limited powers. As we spoke with the guy from UCLA on Tuesday this week, the Francophile professor, he had mentioned that it's not a political body, but in many ways, the EU actually does take on some of the roles that you would think of a federal government taking on. And that's why it became such a, I don't know, it's just kind of a gray area. You have different members and different treatment to different members in the EU.
Did it become more powerful than its individual members intended for?
Originally it was designed basically to stop war between France and Germany. Right. And then it was supposed to be an economic union. And then it became a little bit more towards a political body. Right. And you heard the guy talking about austerity. Right. That's a word that they use to talk about the way that Germans financial system works and the way that they balance their budgets. And you heard it a lot with Greece. A lot of people in Europe are like, we don't want to be ruled by German ways of managing money, and we don't want to be ruled by French morals, and we don't want to deal with, And so there's now, not after the Brexit, people are talking about a Frexit from France, a Skexit from Scotland. There just seems to be a disunification over these issues.
Right.
Well, I agree, and that's really where I rest my case. I think the British over in England, Britain, the people in Britain wanted to be their own sovereign nation rather than be ruled by an EU where there's German management and other management where they wanted to have their own nationalism, their own populism.
Now, hold on, Emma. Keep in mind that the member nations, paid, I believe, billions of dollars or billions of euro to be part of the European Union. And a lot of that money was spread around in different ways. So in one way, Britain won't have to pay that, but then they won't be able to reap any of the benefits they used to benefit as well. So
interesting.
It's a double-edged sword there.
Yeah, just one brief comment before I go. I thought that hippy-dippy sit-in by the Democrats and on Washington was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. They were so desperate because they've been losing to a lot of conservative issues and that kind of thing that when they lost their gun control vote, they had to revert back to a 1960s flashback.
Well, I think it was less than a 1960s flashback. I mean, many of the 1960s protesters were protesting against things that mattered, and they were protesting for liberties. In this case, we have people occupying the House floor to panhandle for money. It's not quite at the level of some of the protests of the 1960s. Hey,
Emma, we got to take a break.
Thank you.
We got to go another call on. I'm sorry. Thank you. And Dave, you're on Talkback. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, about the British breakup. If the pound continues to drop off and go through the floor, then the British people will see their standard of living when it comes to buying other things outside their country become very expensive, and it'll affect their standard of living, like I said. But if the pound goes sky high, then it'll make their standard of living easier.
And
So
you know what's interesting, Dave, is this is going to create because anytime there's a drop like this, people are literally poised like vultures to jump in when it hits its lowest and start reaping the profits to bring it back up again. So
yeah, I think pretty quickly people will realize this isn't a seismic shift. One of the big benefits, one of the great things about humanity that I think we see with this Brexit is that there's not a war. 100 years ago, a separation of a political entity like this, of this magnitude,
would have been bloody.
Right. And it's not like that anymore. And this separation, I think, what you're going to see, and I don't know if Britain will choose a liberating outlook, whether it is going to be less restrictive, more open to trading with its partners and friends and neighbors, or if it's going to be more isolationist. We really don't know, but the uncertainty of the matter certainly means bad news for our stock market and likely theirs in the near future.
Markets hate uncertainty more than anything else.
Well, yeah, in my view, this is all about a giant worldwide job war, about jobs, and the British have felt that they're losing on the job war, and a lot of Americans feel the same way, and it all comes down to who's going to have the factories and who isn't.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Appreciate the call as always. Tyler, Dean, and Mike will get you guys on in a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. All four lines are humming this morning, so, gosh, let's just jump right in. Okay, Tyler, you're up first. Hi, Tyler, what's up?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I just wanted to let everybody know that the deputy mayor of Realville is down here in Lolo at Crazy Horse selling pictures for the 50-mile yard sale, garage sale thing.
Okay, all right.
Wanted everybody in the valley to know, rain or shine, this thing's still going on. We got a packed parking lot with lots of people down here. And I've got Talkback on, and I've already had people coming in and talking with me about it.
Cool, awesome. That's where you go.
What does the deputy mayor of Realville think about Brexit?
Well, I wish I was sitting at home watching the stock market today, but I'm going to try and track it on my phone. But
just hold a rock and then drop it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just write stock market on it. You'll get a good idea of what it looks like.
It was down 480 points at the opening bell.
I've already heard it's been down over 600, but I mean I can't confirm any of this stuff.
But the people that I know on Wall Street say it's a great opportunity to buy.
So yeah, well, sure. Anytime people are freaking out is usually a good time to make a smart move.
Yeah, the fear cycle and the greed cycle. We're in the middle of the fear cycle right now. Yeah. All right, thanks, Tyler.
Thanks, guys. See you guys.
Stay dry out there. Dean, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hi, what's up?
I was going to ask John because since I'm a pessimist, I'm curious if the United States is going to bail out Eastern Europe.
If the United States is going to bail out Eastern Europe.
In what way do you mean?
Yeah, well, I don't understand what you mean by bail them out.
Know,
Sorry?
Well, because it seems like we're always willing to give money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that, it seems like they're having issues.
Well, Eastern Europe's, doing radically better than it was 20 years ago. The biggest threat to Eastern Europe right now is probably Russia.
And remember that the European Union has its own, banking system where they're giving money to Greece. They're trying to help out, their various members. So they wouldn't turn to us first.
You don't think so?
Oh no, I think they'd turn to us. I guess the problem is I don't see an imminent crisis of the magnitude of like Syria or even Greece right now. The Eastern Europe joined the EU not too long ago. And actually, one of the things that Britain was upset about is that when they got their EU status, a lot of these countries, it gave you the freedom to move to any other country you want. And so they left these countries that were doing better and came to countries that were already doing much better. They left, some of these Eastern European countries and moved to England or to Germany or France, etc. And so that was some of the pressure. Okay. That was some of the pressure that a lot of the people in Britain were upset about. When they're talking about migration, they're not just talking about Syria.
I just said I'm a pessimist, and it seems like we're always bailing somebody out.
Yeah, well, if I could just share one quick thing, a personal experience. When I went over to visit my daughter, my wife and I, and we went to the various, pubs and restaurants and stores and shops. Mm-hmm. Very seldom did you actually run into someone with a British accent.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, it was somebody from a different. It could have been an African country or a Middle Eastern country.
Tourists in big cities notice this a lot.
Or
right?
we ran into a lot of folks from Albania and Afghanistan. I mean, quite literally all over the world. So.
Well, I would also, I think, maybe, if Mr. Pessimist, when it comes to bailing people out, sometimes bailing people out is the right thing to do. I mean, we spent a lot of money investing in Japan. We spent a lot of money investing in South Korea. We spent a lot of money in the Marshall Plan to reconstruct Europe after the war. And the world is much better off for those investments.
That's true.
So,
well, thank you, gentlemen.
Pessimism neutralized.
Thanks for the call. All right, let's get. We have two lines open now. By the way, 721-1290. Mike, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. This is a great day for Great Britain, in my opinion. Michael Moore is speaking out on CNBC how it's a travesty and how it's just a terrible, terrible blow to socialism. It's you know why Germany and France, their stock markets are plummeting so hard is because they were counting on Great Britain to help prop up all these other smaller European countries that weren't playing by the rules. They wanted Greece. They wanted free money thrown at them. They didn't want to make reforms. They didn't want to decrease mandatory vacations.
I tell you what, you want to talk about austerity. The Greeks wanted their people to work past the age of 50. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Oh, that is just, yeah. See, and so Great Britain said, well, no, we're going to pass on this. And France and Germany are saying, wait, don't go. Yep. No, we need your money. We need your contributions. And they're saying, no, we can spend our money better than you guys can.
And Peter's getting ready to lap 50. He's like two Greek workers.
And another thing is with the pound dropping, think of all the tourism that's going to come from Europe, going to come from America. They're going to want to go to Great Britain, get great deals. The exports from Great Britain are going to be cheaper. They're going to be able to compete with.
Well, I think that this is the big question, and I think it's the question that the British Parliament and the people that write the rules over there have to come up with: is Britain going to be more open to trade, right? So they just lost a lot of their connections to Europe. That's almost 50% of the trade that England has is with the European Union. So if they decide to clamp down on their trade and limit the liberties of the people to trade outside of their own country now that they have the freedom to do so, I think that would actually hurt the United Kingdom. But they also have the opportunity to open up their trade.
Exactly.
But I have no idea what they're going to choose.
Now, one of the things that my new friend Andrew said was that, and I noticed that when I was over there, real estate prices in Great Britain are exorbitant. I mean, unbelievably exorbitant. And one thing he mentioned is a lot of that had to do with the European Union. And now it looks like people who want to invest in real estate in Great Britain may find better values, and that will bring more money into their system, even though initially some folks will lose some money, but the markets eventually will even out.
Yes, exactly. I would love to go to Great Britain, and I'm going to get a great deal now.
All right, thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Joe, I'm going to ask you to wait 1 minute. We have to take a 1 minute time out. We'll be right back.
And I do have a clip from a man who wants to make America Great Britain again. Maybe we'll listen to that later.
We're going to come right back. Stay with it. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. We have three lines open. And let's get Joe on the line. Joe, thanks for holding. Go ahead, sir. Hello, Joe.
Yeah, hello. It's interesting that the stock market, I believe, represents the larger corporations. So the smaller entities in Great Britain seem to be quite happy that they're going to be free of these regulations, which have been imposed by unelected bureaucrats. And Obama and Angela Merkel are not the best representatives of the small entities, the small businesses, but they seem to be favoring the large corporations, which, in my opinion, this is about federalism and the failure of federalism, because in the European Union, you've had, say, cheese producers or apple cider producers who operated out of facilities that were, by European Union standards are substandard, but they've been doing it for centuries. And now they're not allowed to sell their products in the European Union. And I think the English people have nothing to fear because they have money. And as say, for me going down to Mexico, I'll always be welcome because I have money. And that's the bottom line. You know, I don't think that the European Union is going to reject English money.
I think you're right. I mean, money works across borders. It's something that draws humanity together. It's that desire for currency, right?
Who's got the dough? And,
you know, I think you're right about there is an opportunity here for fear and opportunity with Britain. But I guess my question for you and the idea that the smaller markets are going to be better off, I think that's still a question to be had. I mean, just because larger corporations are failing doesn't mean that it's a teeter-totter and that smaller family shops or whatever are improving.
No, my point is that the regulations which have been imposed are disproportionately affecting the smaller organizations and preventing them from competing because they can't afford to meet the regulations, which is similar to the system we have, where we benefit large corporations as well.
Sure, but think about this in the United States and Canada's terms, okay? We have health regulations in the United States that are different from United Kingdom, correct? Sometimes there's weird stuff that we have a hard time buying in the United States that the Canadians can get easier and vice versa.
Like prescription drugs, for one.
Prescription drugs or even some natural remedies, things like that, right? Well, if we don't have that same problem when we trade with Idaho, or when we trade with Utah. There's just a different level of engagement. Now that the United Kingdom has separated from the EU, it's going to have to remake all of those connections with its trade in order to have the ease of trade between the countries. So even though you might be correct that the EU has weird rules when it comes to some of its produce standards, if you've ever heard of the straight banana problem, then, I mean, even though that almost certainly exists when it comes to certain types of products. Now the UK is in the position where it has to renegotiate a lot of these trade deals, and it could be better or it could be worse in the long term.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the call, sir.
Yep.
Have a great day. All right. We have 4 minutes left in the program.
Well, let's hear from Donald Trump. Donald Trump was, doing the best he can to make $1 again in Great Britain. He is opening up a new golf course for the American people, I'm sure. He was his full heart and soul into this election campaign. He's not trying to profit off it in any way.
Of course not.
So anyway, he's over in Scotland, and of course he was asked about Brexit, and here's his response.
I think I see a big parallel. I think people really see a big parallel. A lot of people are talking about that, and not only the United States but other countries. People want to take their country back. They want to have independence in a sense, and you see it with Europe, all over Europe. You're going to have more than just, in my opinion, more than just what happened last night. You're going to have, I think, many other cases where they want to take their borders back. They want to take their monetary back. They want to take a lot of things back. They want to be able to have a country again. So I think you're going to have this happen more and more. I really believe that, and I think it's happening in the United States. It's happening by the fact that I've done so well in the polls. You look at the recent polling and you look at the swing states and you see how I'm doing, and I haven't even started my campaign yet, essentially. I mean, we've done very well. We're raising a lot of money for the Republican Party. I'm going to be funding a lot myself, but we're raising a lot of money, John, for the Republican Party, and you'll see those numbers out over the next 30 days, and in particular 60 days. The numbers that were put out last week were just a very start. That was a very small period of time just to start. But we have raised a lot of money, especially money coming in from small donors. You'll be amazed when you see the kind of numbers we're talking about, because we were amazed and I was amazed. But that'll be reported fairly soon. But I really do see a parallel between what's happening in the United States and what's happening here. People want to see borders. They don't necessarily want people pouring into their country that they don't know who they are and where they come from. They have no idea. And I think, it not only did it win, but it won by a much bigger margin than people thought it would happen.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
John shakes his head whenever we have Trump doing anything. But he's put out a new ad, though.
He does have a new ad.
A new ad.
He's got, what's the domain he bought up? lyingcrookedhillary.com, I think is the domain.
Lyingcrookedhillary.com.
And so the new TV ads and web ads are the 10 lies of the quote, legendary lies of Hillary Clinton. And the first one, number 10. So I don't know what they're going to build up to.
Right.
Number 10 is Benghazi. What do you think number 1 will be? I'm curious.
That's a very good question. I would imagine some of it has to do with the whole email deal, or I would have thought that Benghazi would have been up there close to number 1.
That's what I was thinking. Like you put that in the top 3 category. I mean, how much time we got? Do we have time to play the ad?
Let's see.
It's only like a 40-second ad.
Okay, where is it? Here. Trump TV ad. Here we go. Okay, let's listen to this. Here we go.
Always told the truth.
I've always tried to. We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video.
The next day, within 24 hours, you had a conversation with the Egyptian Prime Minister. You told him this: "We know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest."
She lied to me. She told me it was the fault of the video.
And to think that she has a shot at being our president, crooked Hillary Clinton. We can't let it happen. If I win, believe me, make America great again, and it's going to be greater than ever before. We have a chance to be greater than ever before.
All right. And with that, we're going to leave it. Health Talk on Monday, and we hope you'll have a great day and join us. And we're off to a big award ceremony for the weekend. Wish us luck. Bye-bye, everybody.